Welcome back to At the Vanguard. I want to start today with a simple but maybe peculiar question. Do artists need a code of conduct? On the surface, it certainly might feel almost contradictory. Art is supposed to be free, unbound, without restrictions. It's where we experiment and push limits, break rules, and sometimes even shock. So why would we, of all people, want something that sounds like a rule book? Well, that's what I want to explore with you today. Because while it's true that art thrives in freedom, artists also live and work in relationship with collaborators, with audiences, with institutions, with society at large. And those relationships depend on something more than just freedom. They depend on trust, fairness, integrity. I mean, think about it. Musicians, actors, painters, dancers, writers, all of us are constantly putting ourselves into spaces where vulnerability and risk are part of the work. Consider rehearsal rooms, recording studios, classrooms, stages, galleries. These spaces can be magical, but only if the people in them know they are safe, respected, and valued. Without that foundation, the art, the artist, and the audience suffer. So, back to my opening question. Do artists need a code of conduct? Today, I will argue the answer is yes. Not to stifle our creativity, not to box us in, but in fact to set us free. A different kind of liberation, though. I'm talking about the freedom to take risks, the freedom to collaborate or fly solo, the freedom to create with confidence because we know the ground beneath us is solid. These pursuits are what brought me to today's topic and to a treatise I would like to share with you. The Consummate Artist's Code of Professional Conduct, which I'll abbreviate as the CACPC. You can download a free copy from the link in the show notes. This is a document consisting of 8 core values and 9 tenets that guide ethical behavior in the arts. I've developed it with inspiration from similar codes in other fields, particularly my time in an ASL interpreting program. This is a field in which professional ethics are paramount. The success or failure of an interpreter can have significant consequences. The CACPC is a framework for how we, as artists, can hold ourselves and each other to standards that elevate not only the work, but the profession and the communities we serve. I see this as something that could benefit artists anywhere, whether you're a student, an emerging professional, or even a veteran in your field. In this episode, I'm going to walk you through the main ideas of this code, where it stems from, what it says, and why I believe it matters. My goal here is not to hand you a set of rules. It's to invite you into a conversation, one that I hope you'll carry into your own practice and your own circles. When we talk about a code of professional conduct, it can sound heavy or even unnecessary. But the reality is, when artists don't have shared standards, when we don't hold ourselves and each other accountable, things go wrong, sometimes very wrong. We all know stories of ethical failure. Someone's lack of preparation derails an entire project. An artist takes credit for someone else's work. A company cuts corners, underpays its clients, or ignores accessibility. These aren't trivial moments or mere blips. These are events that can waste resources, destroy reputations, leave scars, fracture communities, and ultimately they hurt the art itself. There have been countless high-profile examples. There was the case against Katy Perry's Dark Horse, where a court initially ruled that it had copied another song, which was later overturned. The Nino Meyer Gallery came under fire after reports that it had underpaid its artists, altering invoices and pocketing the difference. Led Zeppelin's founder, Jimmy Page, faced a lawsuit over releasing archival versions of Dazed and Confused without properly crediting the songwriter who inspired it. And of course, not all breaches come from ill intent. Author Jonah Lehrer admitted to reusing his own material and fabricating quotations. After the fallout, he apologized and acknowledged he, quote, needed rules to guide his work. Double booking rehearsals, forgetting to credit a collaborator, misjudging how our words would land with an audience. These are ordinary mistakes, the kinds anyone might make. But they still erode trust. And they remind us that this code I'm presenting today isn't just for preventing exploitation. It's also a guide for good faith artists who want to learn and do better the next time. There are also the more serious cases, like the tragic death of cinematographer Helena Hutchins on the set of Rust, caused by the mishandling of a prop firearm. That incident left the entire film community reeling, desperate to understand how their safety systems failed, who to hold accountable, and how to prevent future tragedies. My own journey has been one of continual discovery and growth. I've been on the receiving end of others' missteps and misconduct. I've also had to learn some of my own lessons the hard way. You might have a similar journey. What it's taught me is that humans are fallible. And because of that, there's always room for compassion and forgiveness. The CACPC isn't meant to be a weapon for judgment or punishment. It's not about self-righteous indignation. It recognizes that no artist and no situation is perfect. Things are rarely black and white. This code can be used to help us navigate those gray areas. We can use it to keep ourselves oriented toward a stronger moral compass. And it reminds us that our choices can lead to a better life. This is why a code like this matters. Not to police us, not to strip art of its edge, but to foster and protect the conditions that allow art and artists to flourish. The Consummate Artist's Code of Professional Conduct is aspirational, yes. It calls us to enact values like integrity, compassion, equity, and excellence. But it's also practical. It offers guidance for the messy, complicated situations that inevitably come up in our work. Think of it as scaffolding. It doesn't tell you what to build. Instead, it gives you the structure and support so that whatever you are building, a painting, a symphony, an organization, can rise taller, stronger, and safer. The CACPC is also a tool for building and maintaining trust. With a shared code, colleagues know where you stand. Audiences know they can engage with your work without being exploited or mistreated. Communities know that the artist in their midst is acting responsibly. In short, the CACPC can help us hold ourselves to the same level of excellence in our personal and professional choices that we already aspire to in our art. So let's go ahead and dive into the heart of the code itself. The CACPC primarily consists of 8 core values and 9 tenets, all of which stems from 2 central ideas. Every moral code must start with one or more premises. These are things we just accept as fundamentally true. The underlying philosophy of the CACPC is based on 2 goals: do no harm and foster human flourishing. Everything that follows emerges from that foundation. The code presumes these are universally desired and beneficial outcomes. They're like the magnetic poles by which we orient and navigate. From those two axioms flow the 8 core values. These are the qualities that shape who we are as artists and how we carry ourselves in the world. They are the touchstones that give meaning to the subsequent tenets. The core values themselves are grouped into 3 layers. First are the personal values. These are integrity, wisdom, and curiosity. These 3 speak to the inner life of the artist, the honesty, the judgment, and the openness to growth that ground our craft. Next are the interpersonal values, dignity and compassion. These remind us that art is never made in isolation. It's a relational practice. And finally, we have the societal values, justice, flourishing, and beauty. These call us to look beyond ourselves, beyond our immediate circles, and to consider the larger impact of what we do. Together, these 8 values set the tone of the CACPC. They remind us that art is not only about expression, it's also about stewardship. It's not just about what we make, but about how we make it and what we contribute to the human story. From the roots of these 8 core values grow the tenets, 9 distinct principles that give structure to how we embody those values in our daily artistic lives. The tenets are grouped into 3 categories, each one representing a different dimension of artistic professionalism. The first category is the core traits. These are what you show up with to every situation. This includes the first 3 tenets: accountability, conduct, and competence. Accountability is about taking responsibility for our actions and our words, as well as their impact. Without it, trust crumbles. Accountability asks us to own our mistakes as readily as our successes, to follow through on our commitments, and to remain transparent and truthful in how we represent ourselves and our work. Conduct is how we present ourselves in the world, showing up prepared, treating others with respect, handling stress without hostility, and disclosing conflicts of interest. It's the visible expression of professionalism. And competence reminds us that artistry isn't just inspiration, it's discipline. It means saying yes only to work we are prepared for, doing the practice, putting in the hours, and staying open to growth. The next category is relationality, which is how we engage with others. It includes the next 3 tenets: confidentiality, respect for colleagues, and respect for audiences. Confidentiality is about trust in the rehearsal room, the studio, the classroom. It means safeguarding drafts, recordings, conversations, and other private matters. Without confidentiality, collaboration feels unsafe. Respect for colleagues means collaboration marked by fairness and generosity, listening as much as we speak, valuing every contribution, and addressing conflicts with dignity instead of gossip or sabotage. And then we have respect for audiences. This means never taking them for granted. Audiences aren't passive consumers. They are participants in an exchange. Respect here means accessibility, honesty about what we're presenting, and care for the impact our work has on those who engage with it. The last category is sustaining the field, which includes the final 3 tenets: business practices, equity, and professional development. Business practices keep us accountable in the practicalities of our work: contracts, money, intellectual property, credit. These can feel mundane, but if they're handled poorly, they can devastate trust and reputation. Equity calls us to remove unjust barriers, to ensure fair representation, pay, and access, and to actively work against prejudice. And finally, professional development is the commitment to never stop growing, to keep learning, adapting, seeking feedback, and contributing to others' growth in turn. 9 tenets, each distinct, yet none complete without the others. They're not meant to be boxes that we check off or silos we stand alone in. Think of them like facets of a jewel, reflecting and reinforcing one another. In the real world, decisions rarely touch only one tenet. A single choice might involve integrity, conduct, and respect for colleagues all at once. And that's the point. The code is designed to help us think holistically, to integrate, not isolate. So how do we actually adopt and apply the CACPC? It's one thing to talk about values and tenets, but the real test comes when we're faced with choices. The CACPC isn't designed to be a checklist. Rather, it acts as a compass, a set of guideposts to orient us when we're in the thick of messy, complex human situations. Let's look at a few scenarios to see how the CACPC can be enacted. We'll start with an easy one. Imagine you're a singer hired to record background vocals on a commercial track. The producer sends you charts and expects you to show up ready. If you walk into that session without having practiced, without even looking at the material, you're violating the tenet of competence. You're wasting people's time, damaging trust, and risking the project. But if you've come prepared, if you've studied the charts, warmed up your voice, and are ready to adapt on the spot, you're upholding competence. You're also showing respect for your colleagues and for the audience who will eventually hear the work. Now for a less straightforward scenario that takes place in a theater rehearsal. You are a choreographer, and in a moment of vulnerability, a cast member confides in you about personal struggles that are affecting their performance. Later, during a production meeting, the director expresses frustration with this cast member and asks if anyone knows what's going on. If you share private details without permission, you violate confidentiality. But if you stay silent, you risk enabling a misunderstanding that could jeopardize the project and that cast member's employment. Upholding the CACPC here might mean finding a third option. Perhaps encouraging the cast member to speak directly with the director, or privately letting the director know there are personal matters at play without disclosing specifics. It's less tidy, but it's still informed by several of the tenets: accountability, conduct, confidentiality, respect for colleagues, respect for audiences, and equity. Lastly, let's consider a more complex situation from the world of visual art. Suppose you are a curator assembling a group show. You've deliberately chosen to feature artists from communities historically underrepresented in galleries, reflecting your commitment to equity. But then, a renowned artist from a majority background, someone with name recognition and a large following, expresses interest in joining. Not only are they a longtime colleague, but their involvement would almost certainly bring an infusion of attention and revenue to a gallery that is already struggling to stay afloat. This is where the tenets begin to feel like they're pulling against one another. Equity calls you to uphold access and representation for artists who rarely get these opportunities. Respect for colleagues reminds you to handle your established relationship with care, to avoid dismissiveness, and to communicate transparently. Integrity demands that your decisions reflect honesty about your values and your reasoning. And business practices reminds you that without financial stability, the gallery and the opportunities it provides to these underrepresented communities may not survive. In a case like this, the CACPC doesn't simply hand you an easy answer. There is no perfect resolution where every tenet can be flawlessly upheld at once. What the code does offer you is a lens for reflection. You ask yourself, am I making choices that uphold dignity? Am I balancing short-term needs with long-term vision? Am I being transparent with all the parties involved? The CACPC won't erase the difficulty, but it will help you walk through it with clarity and integrity, rather than reacting blindly or in self-interest. These scenarios show us what the CACPC really is. Not a list of constraints, but guardrails and guideposts. It's there to help us navigate ethically, not to box us in. It's also important to say this. The CACPC is first and foremost a guide for our own behavior. This isn't about policing other people or wielding it as a weapon. In leadership positions, yes, it can be adopted as a framework for a company, a class, a project. Leaders do have a responsibility to establish and uphold standards, to serve the well-being and success of their team, and to hold themselves and their subordinates accountable. But we don't have jurisdiction over the whole world. What we do have is the power to choose integrity for ourselves. And we can also invite others to join us in that choice. And that's the hope, that artists see the wisdom and benefits in the CACPC and choose to adopt it voluntarily. Because when that happens, when enough of us hold to these standards, the culture of artistry itself begins to change. So, where do we go from here? First, I want to be clear, this document is not etched in stone. It's not a decree, it's not an edict handed down from on high. The CACPC is a framework. It's something to inspire, to provoke thought, to guide. And like any framework, it should grow, evolve, and adapt as artists engage with it. Healthy skepticism is welcome. In fact, it's necessary. If you read a tenet and think, I'm not sure I agree with that, or that doesn't fit my corner of the art world, that's not a failure of the code. That's the beginning of dialogue. That's where refinement happens. So here's my invitation to you. First, please read the CACPC for yourself. Sit with it, reflect, notice where it resonates, and also where it challenges you. If you align with these ideas, try adopting the code personally. Again, not as a checklist, but as a compass for your own choices. And then you can share it. Bring it to your peers, your classrooms, your ensembles, your collectives. Use it to spark conversations. And also, I would love to hear your feedback, your questions, your stories of where you've seen these principles succeed or fail. This is not meant to be static or unilateral. It's meant to be lived and shaped by the artistic community. Just imagine what would happen if enough of us did this. If enough artists across disciplines held to these principles, we would elevate not only the quality of our work, but also the culture and future of artistry itself. This is your chance to help shape something bigger, to add your voice, your perspective, your experience. I hope you'll take it. Artistry is both a personal practice and a public trust. By embracing these principles, we are not just elevating our own work, we are strengthening the dignity of the profession, we're enriching our communities, and we're contributing to the flourishing of future generations. The Consummate Artist Code of Professional Conduct isn't about constraint. It's about clarity. It's about choosing integrity, respect, equity, growth, not only for ourselves, but for everyone touched by our work. If you'd like to read the code in full, you can download it at the website listed in the show notes. And if you have thoughts, feedback, or stories to share, I would love to hear them. You can reach me directly through the contact form on the website. This is, I hope, just the beginning of the conversation. The CACPC is a living document, and its strength comes from the community of artists who engage with it, question it, and help it grow. So let's do this together. Let's hold ourselves to a higher standard, not out of self-righteousness, but out of love for the art, the people, and the communities we serve.